make some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Sunday, May 18th, 2025. It's good to be in the old command chair again. Shut up, Wesley. I've still got it. So I was traveling, I was working, and it's nice to be home, but there's a lot that happened while I was gone. Holy cow, what a week. What a week to have things to do, right? And I did, and I'm back. And Carney's election lies about the tariffs seem to be blowing up. People are saying this is a massive scandal. Okay, it's a massive scandal. How many massive scandals did Trudeau have? Is he going to get that majority? It looks like he's going to get the majority. My prediction is 171 out of recounts, 172 after the throne speech, and one of the NDP crossed the floor. That's just how I think it's all going to happen. Whatever. Maybe the NDP completely implodes and the Liberals just absorb them. But fundamentally, I think the Liberals are going to take a majority, and then they're going to pass all their censorship laws. And then we're in a different ballgame altogether. But I've got a plan, sort of. So worry not, viewer. We'll see, though, a big scandal. First of all, nobody believed him in the first place. He lies about everything. Second of all, he took the tariffs off mid-election and then campaigned against Trump after telling Trump privately, oh, don't worry about all that rhetoric I'm going to say. Just ignore all that, okay? And Trump said, sure, man. So I don't necessarily blame Trump, but it was very calculated. And now the paperwork's coming out to show how calculated it is. And will Canadians care? It doesn't. Oh man, I wish that they would, but I see most of them will say what? And then move on, right? BudgetGate. Who needs a budget? Says Mark Carney's Philippe Champagne. Not us, certainly not Canada. Dictatorships don't need budgets, right? Like you just spend. On this trip, I didn't make a budget. I just lit money on fire left and right. Lunch, who cares? Just put it on the credit card, right? It's the company credit card. I don't make a budget for these things. You can't run a country like that without a budget. Why don't the official opposition seem to care about this? What are they going to do? Do they have a plan? No. Oh, good. So we're going to get a fall economic statement, no budget. Right, sure. How is that going to work? How the housing prices are being used to prop up our whole economy with this facade. So if the housing was $100,000, like if your house cost $100,000, that's very different than your house costing $500,000. The $500,000 house inflates all of the stuff around it. And I've got somebody to explain that because I find it very interesting. The short version of it is the Canadian government is incentivized to keep the housing prices high. That's why they're talking the way they're talking. And people who own houses want that too. They're incentivized. It's like a bribe. They're like, listen, we're going to keep your asset worth a lot. Cool. And the people who own the thing say, yeah, okay. And so there's no conversation about this really. It's implied, right? And the way to, say no is to vote them out, but we can't seem to do that, which is very interesting. But we'll talk about the housing prices too. Keir Starmer sounding like the people he put in jail post Southport by his posts online. Apparently people in England should speak English all of a sudden. What? Keir Starmer? What? So we'll look at that later in the show. More seats flipped Liberal this week. We've talked about that and I've predicted on that. The Bloc, though, are taking Elections Canada to court to force a by-election because there is a clear law in place that says if an election is that close, it has to be rerun. And apparently Elections Canada is saying, oh, blah, 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 blah. Don't worry about that. And they're trying to not rerun the election and Blanchet's having none of it. So that's pretty interesting. I've got video for you on that. Ostrich update. This thing has been an emotional roller coaster. Let me tell you about that. It's every day I wake up and I'm like, are the ostriches dead? No? Okay. So they're still alive. They're still alive as far as I understand it right now. But the whole thing just seems absolutely bonkers. And people say it's so much more insidious. But if they can come for your ostriches, they can come for your pets, right? They can come for everything. So, man, this whole thing is getting very, very dicey. And still people don't see. It's very interesting. Recruits are leaving the Canadian military. We'll talk about that. Because they say that the leadership has all the wrong priorities. They're correct. And the BC elections, we've got BC dirt from inside the conservative, John Rustad's Conservative Party. And I knew there was dirt. And well, we're going to read about it, but actually it might be tangential reading. You might have to read about it on your own. I'll give you the story in a synopsis, but you may have to read the actual thread because it's kind of long and detailed. And like, we've got a lot. I don't even know how many tabs. Let's see. We're going to find out together right now how many tabs this is. 71. So that's you. that's more than usual. I only went back to the 14th. I left on, I think, the 10th, but I don't want to repeat myself, and I don't want the show to be unwieldy. So, and I have places to be. I've got stuff to do. So I'm going to try and keep it, well, short and sweet. But it's not really going to be short because there's a lot to cover. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Concerned Canadian is talking about the budget stuff and Mark Carney and not having a budget. And it's interesting because during the election, he said this: you need a plan, right? No plan is not a good plan. You need a plan. And I wish I was kidding, but here he is on video saying that.
Own economic destiny has to have a clear plan here at home. Own economic destiny.
So he was taking Poilievre to task by saying, if you don't have a plan, I've got a plan, and we're going to execute the plan. And the plan was we're going to pull the tariffs down and lie to Canadians, basically, is the plan. Here's Francois-Philippe Champagne, and he's talking about how we are not going to have a budget. We're going to have a fall economic statement because reasons, and the reasons are bullshit. Here we go.
The Canadian government priority, and there will be a fall economic statement to follow. So those are really the sequence that you're going to see. Tax cut for the middle class, we're going to be introducing a Ways and Means motions as we enter back into Parliament. We'll table legislation. Then there'll be a throne speech, and then we'll present a fall economic statement.
Are you going to work with opposition parties to get this passed? How are you going to get the votes to get this passed? Are you going to reach out to opposition parties and see if they'll...
Well, Canadians sent a very clear message that they want this Parliament to work for them. And the first measure that we're introducing is a middle class tax cut. So we expect other parliamentarians to support, obviously, the government, because this is about Canadians. We are in a situation, in the dire situation. We've been talking with Canadians for weeks and months during the campaign. They told us one thing: they want us to do bold things. They want us to do them quickly, and they want us to do things for them. So this is a way for all parliamentarians to show up and say, yes, we support Canadians at a time where they need a break.
Canadians sent a strong message for change by re-electing exactly the same structural government that we had last time, a minority Liberals propped up by the NDP. How does that send a strong message for change? And how is putting the same people in charge of that supposed demand for change going to bring any kind of change? It's insane. It doesn't make any sense. These people are nuts. They're out of touch, and they're lying, and they know it. They're lying, definitely, and they know they're lying. Brian Lilly is talking about Mark Carney, and Brian Lilly says, turns out Mark Carney has no plan. A budget is a fiscal plan, financial plan, monetary plan. He says his government won't table one, which is weird because all through the leadership race and the election, he said plan beats no plan. Here it is again. Just to drive it home, 14 seconds.
I've learned a few things from long experience in crises. And the first is that plan beats no plan.
Remember who was it who said, and I don't, for some reason the chat's not working on my Twitch, otherwise I'd ask my Twitch people, but who was it who said they were under fire? And was it Hillary Clinton with Brian Williams, or was it Brian Williams? I think it was Brian Williams. He said they were under fire, right? He knows what it's like to be under pressure in under pressure situations. Like when your barber gives you a bad haircut and you're like, I don't know what to do right now. Like, I'm not going to tip this guy. Like, what is he talking about? He doesn't have it. You weren't under fire, Brian Williams. You weren't under fire. So it's weird, right? He's wanting a plan, and now he doesn't have a plan. We're not going to table a plan. Doesn't even make sense to table a plan, he says. Mark Nixon says Mark Carney's cracked under the pressure. So people have been putting a lot of pressure on Mark Carney, saying you have to do this. And I don't think a fall financial update, fiscal update, or even a fall budget is enough at all. You table your budget, or your government collapses and we go right back to election. Table it. Because other than that, like, we've got a throne speech, which is a confidence vote, and then you should have the budget. You should have this fiscal thing being presented. Chrystia Freeland almost overloaded us with how much information she was giving us that had nothing to really, it wasn't any official stuff. She could lie on it all she wanted, and she did. The economic updates and all the rest of it. And so we haven't had a really good look or understand a really good fulsome picture of Canada's finances as they stand now, because we've had 10 years of complete reckless mismanagement and spending, and now they're and obfuscation through kind of a fire hose of information, but none of it meaningful. So you've got all this information to sift through, but you're like, where does she pull that number from, Chrystia Freeland? Where did you fund that $2 billion thing? Where is that in the budget? Is it listed? Is it listed as an asset? Is it listed as a liability? What is it, right? Like, and so they do all this stuff. Carney hit a bunch in his quote costed platform that I guess is not going to be brought up or dealt with at all until the fall. But here he is talking about this. Again, the budget in the fall is not nearly enough. And one other thing I want to point out, by the way, all of these people who are talking about, oh, this person's the wrong person to be in a ministerial job. I think the entire government is illegitimate. I think any talking about how good this person is for the role or how bad they are or this or that is legitimizing the government in a way that is kind of insidious, because now you're talking like, well, I guess they're good for the role, but really they shouldn't be there because the whole thing was effed. The whole election was effed. But you're forced into this, is this person a good for this role conversation, rather than why isn't the news media talking about the fact that this election was rigged? Why isn't the news media questioning Elections Canada about all sorts of irregularities? Why aren't they questioning all of this stuff? Why are we pretending a throne speech by King Charles is normal? Why are we pretending that Mr. Carney won this election in this way? It seems really, really suspicious to me. And I thought that the first week of May, the election would be over. And I don't know what I thought. I mean, I couldn't change where I was going and what I was doing, but I thought a week's a week, right? But a lot happened. And I just think that all of this talking about, all the moves the government is making, et cetera, is working to legitimize the government in a way that is super insidious and kind of a step back and unseen. You can't even see that you're being forced to talk about this like it's legitimate when it is clearly not. And I think it is absolutely clear that it is not. This is a rigged election. This is an illegitimate government. They are doing things that no Canadian would want. And we need to put a stop to it. And we need to stop it, and we need to stop it now. And there's absolutely no excuse for this. And the media who's saying, oh, Mr. Carney's going to do a good job. Danielle Smith saying we need to give him a chance. Bullshit. They're liars. And I will call them out. It's ridiculous. It's illegitimate. I am very confident that the irregularities here all across the whole system are more than enough. And I call into question the legitimacy of Elections Canada at this point. Like, the whole thing needs to be dismantled, and we need to sort out what the problem is, and then we need to fix it. And we need to fix it not using the system that they've built to retain their power, because that's all our bureaucracy is at this point in time, in my opinion. Okay, let's move on. Ryan Garrettson, just to make it clear, that's what I think about the results of these elections. I don't think it's legit. Ryan Garrettson's talking about the budget issue, and he says, Carney says there will be a budget in the fall. He basically says he just doesn't have the time for it. Yet he can take MPs to Italy for the long weekend to meet the Pope, but working on a budget for the next 3 weeks is impossible. Canada's in trouble with this guy in charge. Okay, here, we'll listen to the video now. We didn't listen to it before. Here we go.
In the fall, in the short term, it's a very short parliamentary session that is coming up. The speech from the throne is on the 27th, as people know. The House is due to rise under the House's rules by the 20th of June, so it's really 3 weeks. We have some very clear priorities, which, as you know, from following those who followed the campaign, those who followed my remarks, those who followed my opening press conference, would include the federal government taking all the steps it can to help create one Canadian economy out of 13, in addition, initiatives such as the middle class tax cut. But there will be a budget in the fall.
Abigail Beeman, CTV News. Yep. To that point, with your economic experience as a former governor of two central banks, yep, why not present Canadians with a budget at the very first opportunity?
Well, this is in fact based on my economic experience. There is not much value in my judgment, and it's considered judgment, and it's judgment based on experience, that there is not much value in trying to rush through a budget in a very narrow window, 3 weeks, with a new cabinet, effectively a new finance minister, just reappointed, but a new finance minister, rush that through.
He's been finance minister since Carney's been the leader of the party, and he appointed his cabinet. What is he talking about? Brand new, brand spanking new, brand new. Bull. He's lying. Again, as usual, because apparently our prime minister is allergic to the truth as Marco Mendicino.
For example, in advance of the NATO summit, which happens after Parliament rises. So the NATO summit, 23rd, 24th, that is going to be a very important event for the security of Canada, but also it will have fiscal implications. It will have budgetary implications for Canada. That's one example. To have a budget before we substantially advance further our discussions with the Americans with respect to our economic partnership, to have greater clarity around that. I'm not saying we'll have perfect clarity, but to have greater clarity around that. Again, that's another factor. A third factor, one of the things that we emphasized and are working on from the start of this new mandate is improving the efficiency of government spending, looking where we can reduce costs at all possible, and improving the productivity of the public sector. We are launching that those set of initiatives, having greater visibility on that as we prepare a budget. All of those three factors, so defense spending, the economic outlook, including the tariff relationship with the United States and the efficiency, all of those coming together, we will have a much more comprehensive, effective, ambitious, prudent budget in the fall. You do these things right, and that's what we're going to do.
You do these things right and you deliver it in the fall? That's not acceptable. How about you do it now and you tell us what our finances are now? How about that? How about you're in charge and it's your responsibility to show me line by line where you're spending our money now? How about that, Mr. Carney? Like, unacceptable. It's like a waiter coming over and you ordering one thing and then bringing you something. I brought you the fish. It's like, well, thanks, but I didn't order that. Get it out of here and bring me my dinner. And if you can't figure that out, bring me somebody who can, or I'll leave. And in this case, if you can't, Mr. Carney, figure this out, get out because you're not doing the damn job. Andrew Scheer is responding to Mark Carney, who's essentially saying that we don't have time to do this. Scheer says, who's currently the leader of the Conservative Party, as Mr. Poilievre is running in a by-election whenever the by-election is called. I don't know if it's been called yet. Anyway, sorry, I've been busy. Anyway, Andrew Scheer says, Carney wants you to believe there simply isn't time in the parliamentary schedule for a budget this spring. He is wrong. A budget debate takes 4 days. Ways and Means motion takes effect the moment they're tabled. The opposition parties only get 4 days for their motions. This still leaves plenty of time for the Liberals to give Canadians the transparency of a proper budget. Try again, Mr. Carney. What's the real reason you're hiding the budget? They're broke. They've broken our economy, obviously, clearly, and the auto sector seems to be leaving for the United States because why not? They can build their own power plants on site. Why not? Why not? Then they're not relying on third-party infrastructure they don't control. No downtime. Right? They can run the plant 24/7 without any kind of worry for anything. No brownouts, no blackouts, no air conditioning needs to be run, so everybody turn off the lights. They've got their power. It's 100% their beast, and they can feed back if they want to. But that in and of itself is enough for me. If I'm a business owner and I look at that and say, okay, how do we get everybody here? How do we do this on site? Because I don't want to send people trucking up and down big highways. I want to send the truck of parts from, barn A to barn B on the same property that's half a kilometer apart, half a mile apart. Right. Andy Lee says, I'm not sure everyone realizes how serious this budget thing is. Mark Carney released his costed platform, which included billions in revenue from, quote, retaliatory tariffs against the states on April 19th, 3 days after he had quietly dropped them to near zero. So that's weird. Next level deception. That's actually coming up in the election series of tabs, talking about tariffs and all of that stuff, but it kind of plays into this budget and deception stuff. Contrarian says Canada taxes are so insane. How does anyone live here? Property tax on a townhouse I own went from $6,500 3 years ago to almost $10,000, an extra $300 a month. This is unsustainable. So can you not budget and run a household? What happens if your costs go up? Do you need to do a budget, or do you wait for we're going to wait for next month when I get a call about this job, and then we'll do a budget when we know the job is, the outcome of the job? Sounds like a pretty viable argument, except for we have from now until you hear from that to live. How much money should we spend? Because we need to know how much we have in order to know how much we can live on for the next month. So how much can we spend, Dad? Right? Nope, sorry about that. We'll do a budget next month. Don't bother me about money. Right? Like, okay, you can't run a household like that. You can't run a government like that. It doesn't make any sense. You can't do that. It doesn't work, right? And our country's falling apart. Housing we'll talk about later as well. We're going to be there in a second. Here is Julian Assange. He says Canada provided 88.6 million with an M in international assistance to South Africa to assist in the genocide of whites in South Africa. Cool, right? Have you guys been paying attention to all of the Trump was in trouble, not in trouble, but all of the Democrats lost their mind because Trump brought white South African refugees from South Africa because they said they were fearful for their lives, and I think quite legitimately. And Trump brought them here and shined a light on it and said, sorry, not here, not to Canada. He brought them to the United States. But all of the media, a church said, we're going to stop resettling refugees if you're going to do stuff like this. Isn't that crazy? If you're going to bring white people here, no way. We're out. We're out. We're only resettling black refugees or Muslim refugees. That's it. Period. Right? And like, what is this? Harvard? Come on. Are you kidding me? So we're sending that kind of money to South Africa, $88.6 million. Where's my money? Come on. I work in Canada. I'm not the CBC, but come on, man. They get a whole ton of money. South Africans get a whole bunch of money. I don't get any money. Come on. It's ridiculous. I'm just kidding. I'm not jealous of the money. I'm actually, I'd rather just have a tax cut and us stop sending money to all foreign countries, like all of them, period. I think the only way to do it properly is to maybe take over Ontario, and I've talked about this before, but I'm just reiterating, take over Ontario with the government, right? So, get elected leader, magic wand. I'm the premier with a majority cabinet. I would create a tax agency that took in all federal and provincial taxes, and then I would refund all federal taxes to the citizens because the federal government at this point in time is compromised by China. And until we get hard evidence that it's not, I would withhold those taxes. A tax revolt through the government. Can you do that? I think you could do that. I don't think it's the correct, that's not a strong next statement. Can you do that? You do that. You just go in and you do that, period. And if the government wants the money, they can prove they're not run by China. And we'll figure out the litmus test at some point. I think we can figure that out pretty easily. Here's Pierre Poilievre, and he's talking about the manufacturing sector. If you don't run your tool and die shop, if you don't run your business with a budget of some kind, then you're going to have a bad time. It's going to be problematic. Somebody's going to overspend petty cash. Somebody's going to commit to something that they can't afford at some point, right? And that's going to be a problem. You're going to be on the hook for that. And so Poilievre is calling Carney out for harming our manufacturing sector because that impacts our bottom line. That impacts how much money Canada has to work with, right? And so if in your non-budget, you overestimate how much you have coming in from income taxes or whatever, from whatever sources of income that rely on manufacturing, let's say, and then all of a sudden, instead of getting 100% of that, you only get 70% of that, that's a problem for your budget too, right? And if you know now a budget and said, this is where we are, this is an oil stick to figure out where we're at, how much oil is in the can, and then compare it to the fall economic statement, then we'll know how bad it's getting. Are we going in the right direction, the wrong direction? If we don't do anything now, oh man, well, I don't know if I'm going to get that job, so I can't do a budget. A budget? Money schmoney. We're not going to worry about that until we have a stronger financial position. Okay, so don't worry about that. This is crazy. Anyway, Canada's manufacturing, Poilievre says, Canada's manufacturing sector is now smaller than Ireland's, a country with 1/8 our population, writes National Bank, which calculates Canada's red tape has grown by 42% on the sector. Unleash free enterprise and our private sector, so our private sector can build, make, and grow like the Irish. Have you guys seen what's going on in Ireland? I've been showing you what's going on in Ireland, but I don't know, comparing Canada to Ireland is a great idea. Yeah, let's do what the Irish are doing, says Poilievre. Here is one of a whole bunch of tweets or posts that look just like this. It's true what they're saying, but I think it's interesting how many posts like this there were. This is going back to May 14th, so midway through the week, but Landsman is responding to Carney's government's first 48 hours. And she says, not even 48 hours in, Mark Carney announces he won't introduce a budget this year because he's a very smart economist and you are not a very smart economist. That was him combating with one of the journalists basically saying, I've got lots of experience. Anyway, regardless. A Liberal minister is already fighting pipelines, saying no new ones should get built. That's Gobo. Parliament has been shut down since December, and the former failed immigration and housing, now justice minister, is talking about working from home. The new housing minister, who nearly tripled housing costs as Vancouver's mayor, is telling everyone the cost of housing is fine. These people are here to do exactly the same thing they did over the last 10 years. This doesn't seem like a winning argument. This doesn't seem like something that's going to tip the scales and convince people that what is happening currently is untenable. It looks like they're playing politics, just like normal playing politics. Like, oh man, we got to bloody their nose a bit with some bad rhetoric, and that's really going to win us the next election. Guys, we're in a completely different paradigm, and you guys are pretending like we're playing the last game still. Hello? Like, what is wrong with you? Economic woes. This girl breaks down why our economy is being propped up with housing and the different scale of if your house cost $100,000 versus if your house costs $500,000, that's 5 times more. That the economics of scale works to the Liberals' advantage and gives them an incentive to keep housing prices high and even potentially go higher, because it seems like we can handle it, which is crazy, but here we are. Here's this lady, and I don't know her or anything like that, but I watched this and I thought, holy cow, yeah, this makes perfect sense to me. Here we go.
Is motivated to protect the bureaucracy that keeps people like me paid. Do you know why?
The federal government wants to keep the value of properties high because it artificially inflates our GDP. Real estate represents 12% of Canada's GDP, which is a staggering amount for a single sector. This includes home sales, financing, legal, and real estate commissions. When the price of real estate looks more expensive on paper, that keeps our GDP looking stronger than it actually is. For example, let's say a home sells for $500,000 in 2016, but this year that same home is worth $950,000. It's the exact same product, but legal fees, commissions, taxes, they all scale with that purchase price. This is a perverse incentive where this is a government shortcut to keep housing expensive to make the economy look better than it actually is. Asset-based GDP inflation, like we have in Canada, is completely hollow. Our economy is essentially dependent on debt-fueled consumption of shelter. And then real estate starts to cool, like it has, and we see a drop in our GDP. This creates pressure to stimulate the market again, often with demand-side band-aids that push price even higher. This is the trap our economy is in.
Demand-side band-aids, like building modular homes.
The government can't afford for home prices to fall because they've tied the nation's entire economic narrative to a speculative housing market. So we're in that period right now where we're experiencing stagnancy. Like Jay said, in the 613, sellers who are listing at 900 plus are holding on to these prices that don't exist anymore. But they're not going to offload them. They're going to remortgage, they're going to carry the property, and they're going to wait for the next spike. Why do you guys think Canada is so obsessed with real estate? It is the entire identity of our country. Our Liberal government is motivated.
That's where it's supposed to start. They're motivated to keep the housing prices high. And I think that she makes some excellent points. Here's Mark Nixon. He says, oops, Canada's new housing minister, Gregor Robertson, said the quiet part out loud. We have to protect market housing. We don't want prices to go down. So that's the reason why we just heard, right?
We've got to create some incentives and opportunities for people to get into the market. We got to make sure that people's assets are obviously protected, and that's the market housing.
So they're assets. The asset is the house. Here's just a little bit more, 30 seconds of him talking about this.
Affordable housing. Delivering that. Need to go down. No, I think that we need to deliver more supply, make sure the market is stable. It's a huge part of our economy. We need to be
supply side band-aid.
Delivering more affordable housing. The government of Canada has not been building affordable housing since the 90s.
The government of Canada shouldn't be building housing. The government of Canada shouldn't be building anything, for crying out loud.
And we've created a huge shortage across Canada. That's where the big need is right now. And I'm very encouraged that the Prime Minister and our commitment right now in government is to double construction and focus on the affordable side. Affordable.
You know, when I talk to people who are from the former USSR, they say, oh, I love government housing. Government housing, don't let me get started about how good government housing is. Same with First Nations people. They say, you know, government housing, the best thing you ever saw. Government. I'm being sarcastic. I hope you understand. But it's one of those things where nobody wants this as a solution. It's like you've shown up at the hospital, you've stubbed your toe, and you're like, man, I don't even really know why I'm here. I think I could walk out of here. And they're like, don't worry, sir, we're going to amputate your foot. And you're like, what? And then you come out and they've amputated your whole leg. This is no, stop. We don't need to do any of this. What are you doing? That's how I feel about our government right now. Anti-WEF we're going to talk about the tariffs here. So this is kind of a mixed bag of tariffs and election stuff because it's kind of all intertwined. Trump's in there and a little bit of everything in here. But EU as well. Ursula von der Leyen is saying, congratulations, Mark Carney. It's super dry. This is really dry. Halfway through, 25 seconds in, I was like, she's talking and I don't care. Anyway, here's von der Leyen talking about how Mark Carney is, congratulations and all the rest. Here you go.
First of all, congratulations on your electoral win. That is good news for Canada. It's very good news for our EU-Canada relationship because the story...
EU-Canada, EU, like EU Bloc, not Neo-Canada. I thought she said Neo-Canada and I was glad. Anyway, back to this.
Of the European Union and Canada's relationship is a good one. It's one of friendship, it's one of trust and standing side by side. And I think we need more of that, be it bilaterally, be it in NATO, be it in G7.
Just not with the United States? It's weird, right? I don't know. We'll just stop that there. Here is further. This is Mark Carney talking about how he's going to stick it to Donald Trump. This is April 27th, 2025. They signed an order on April 16, I think, removing the tariffs that he's saying we're going to really stick it to Donald Trump with these tariffs on the 27th. So this man does not tell the truth, it seems, ever. And that's weird for a prime minister. It seems very strange for a prime minister. Here we go.
We will fight Trump's counter tariffs. In fact, we are already. We're fighting them with our own counter tariffs that cause maximum damage in the United States with minimum impact here in Canada. We will fight.
No, all of that was wrong. None of that was true. So here are people talking about this. Elbows up, Mark Carney told everyone, yet in the middle of the 37-day election campaign, he quietly dropped retaliatory tariffs to nearly zero without telling anyone, says Pierre Poilievre, knowing it would only become public after the election was over on May 7th. See for yourself here. Mark Carney owes the Canadian public some answers now. And Francois-Philippe Champagne says, more of the same falsehoods to retaliate against U.S. tariffs. Canada launched largest ever response, including $60 billion of tariffs on end-use goods. 70% of those tariffs are still in place. We temporarily and publicly paused the tariffs on goods for health and public safety reasons. And here is, hold on, we'll go here. Dr. Jacob Brad says, here are the facts. 1, the tariffs were canceled on April 16th. 2, the election was held on April 28th. 3, the cancellations of tariffs was published on May 7th. Minister Champagne is lying, covering for Prime Minister Carney, who also lied to voters. Elbows up, Canada. So this is the United States surtax remission order. On April 16th it was signed. And so here's Food Professor. He says on April 10th during the election, Carney temporarily paused his campaign to convene a cabinet committee meeting on tariffs. Now we know why. He never disclosed that he was quietly lifting most U.S. tariffs on April 16, clearly not to upset the elbows up vote. Can't make this stuff up. So here is Glenn Evans asking for what are the rules surrounding, usually you have to give notice, and you have to give notice in a timeline prior to the thing taking effect. It's not often in the Canadian government that you can sign a paper and have it have immediate effect. It has to be published. People have to know. There's all sorts of protocol and written down rules. And so in order to do this, ChatGDP says both remission orders were published in the Canadian Gazette, Part 2, revealing the tariff rollback to the broader public. But it wasn't published until the 7th. I don't know why they were able to post-date it. I don't know why they were able to do that, and I'll have to find out, because that's an interesting aspect of the whole thing, because it seems like it's a facade. Sam Cooper's responding to Francois Champagne, who says that Polyev is lying. Cooper says, take the L. I love this timeline. This timeline's pretty fun. Could be better. Anyway, you conned Canadians effectively with assistance from lots of Ottawa media. The honeymoon period for this government, even with the same Ottawa media, will be very limited. They're going to get the censorship stuff through. They're going to hammer that. They're going to ram it through. That's the number one priority right now. As soon as Parliament comes back, they don't want a budget. They don't even want a throne speech. They want to dazzle you with a Prince Charles something or other. And then they want to get right to censorship, and they're going to get right to it. We'll talk about it in a minute. Table Salt says, major breaking. Here is Mark Carney's order that he submitted to the Governor General mid-election that nullified most counter tariffs on the USA. He made no mention of this, and it didn't get published for the public to see until May 7th after the election. I don't know why they were able to do that. So it's very interesting. Table Salt says the order basically says that Canada was on the verge of not functioning. So that's the reason they were able to bring that in. If that's true, how is Mark Carney still in charge? If Canada was on the verge of not functioning because of the policies that they've created and the issues, they're going to try and blame Trump because of this? Canada's not on the verge of not functioning because Trump won't let us take advantage of the sweet trade deal we were used to? I don't know if that flies. I don't think that's going to fly. The globalists own all of the infrastructure and the institutions, so maybe it'll fly. Who knows? Dean says, the signature of the remission order on the April 16th means the bureaucracy and Governor General were involved in the cover-up. This is going to be a massive Carney scandal. He stole the election. No! You're kidding me. People aren't going to take you seriously if you say that. What? Are you kidding? Right? Like, this is my shocked face. Of course the elections are stolen. Of course they're rigged. It's not above board. It never was. Anne says Carney revoked the tariffs on April 16th while telling Canadians he'd use the money to support the people affected. He added $20 billion of revenue to his costed platform. Lies, shows motive and pre-calculation and all sorts of crazy criminal stuff. But no, Dan McTeague says Carney's a lying dirtbag who fooled a lot of stupid Canadians. Do you feel dumb now, you insufferable, arrogant leftist boomers? The problem with this is this drives the boomer wedge really, really well, right? Like, oh man, see, they cheated and we told you they cheated and you voted for them anyway and you're happy that you voted for them, you stupid boomers, or whatever it is, right? And that drives the wedge. That drives the distance between 40-year-olds and everybody above that age bracket, right? Because they caused this. Now I'm never going to be able to buy a house because we have to do this Mark Carney nonsense for the next 4 years, right? And driving that wedge doesn't really help. But I understand being angry. I'm angry too. Just, we should get angry at the right people and then hold them accountable under the laws that we know exist, because we have books that go in great detail about these rules. Why don't we hold them accountable? We should. We absolutely should. Andrew Scheer says, unbelievable. In the middle of an election, Carney secretly made a major policy reversal on U.S. tariffs. Why didn't he come clean and tell Canadians what he was actually doing? So pretty crazy. Chris Watkins says, Bloomberg is now reporting that Carney secretly dropped the U.S. tariffs mid-election, but he continued to lie to Canadians about it for the whole election. Yep, all the way till now. Crazy. Do you feel betrayed? I think it's weird. I think people should feel betrayed. But again, Canadians are not interested in holding people accountable politically at all. And we haven't been for a long time. It's interesting. Ryan Garrettson is talking about Loblaws, and Global News is reporting Loblaws says a number of tariff-affected products will triple in the coming weeks. This is from May 14th. I don't know how we can believe any Canadian media about anything. Like, this could be true. They could be telling us what's going to happen. But the implication is Trump man bad. And I don't think that's true. Look at what Carney's done. You know, he's lied to us in order to justify the election being given to him, because I don't think that he won the election fair and square in any stretch of the imagination, not with votes, not with the strategy of elbows up, not with any of it. I think that they've cobbled it together and sold it to Canadians. And I can't understand why people are accepting it. Like, people should say absolutely effing not, dude. Nope, we're not doing this, not doing any of this, because they will cower to us saying no. They will. They just will, but we won't say no. And I don't know why. I have an understanding why, but it's frustrating. Anyway, I digress. Ryan Garrettson says, now we know why our media was running stories like this. It was to distract from the fact that our government lowered tariffs on almost everything except grocery goods. CBC, Global News, CTV, the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail have not ran a single story on Carney dropping tariffs. This is a problem. There are many, many problems. We are in a deep, deep trouble in Canada. Tracy Wilson is responding to, have you guys heard of all the seats that were flipped at the beginning of the show? I predicted that the Liberals would end with 171, and after the throne speech from the King, we'd have 172, or the entire NDP just collapses in royal, I don't know, they faint, and they love the Royals so much that they move to Liberals, and then the Liberals have a sitting majority, and then they can do anything they want. Because fundamentally, I don't think that we're in charge. I don't think the Canadians are in charge. We don't run our government. We are being run at the behest of somebody else, and they want those censorship laws in place. But have you noticed all of the Liberal seats switching? I have. Here's one of them. Tracy's talking about this on May 16th. Christina says, just before midnight, in the middle of the night, the recount finished. Yeah, sure. I believe that. Just before midnight, an official recount confirmed the outcome of the race in our riding from Milton East, Halton Hills South. We won. It's a profound honor to be elected as your MP. Let's get to work. And here's Tracy. She says, another riding flips to Liberals this week after the election. Just keep counting. So they just keep counting until they come up with a Liberal win. Here is this Jasmine, and she's talking about this for a minute long, and she's skeptical too. Holy cow. When I talked about this before the election, people would just stop engaging with me. I'd get feedback saying, just don't say it's rigged so much, man. And I was like, listen, I'm gonna spend 10 minutes talking about how this thing is rigged because it's so obviously rigged to me. It's rigged, everyone. And I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care. I don't care if you don't like me. I'm sorry. We had a whole conversation in the Canada Poly chat today, and I don't mind standing up and saying, this is what I believe. I mind when people come back at me with nothing. And when I ask for clarification, nothing. It's ridiculous. Come back with something. Anyway, I don't mind being wrong. But I will stand up and hold my ground when I say, this is what I think. And people say, that's dumb. And I say, why is that dumb? And they say, nothing. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Same with all of this stuff. This all looks rigged. And people say, oh, well, like I don't like that. I don't like hearing about that, whatever. I don't care. This is what I'm seeing. This is what is happening. And I don't care if you don't like it or don't agree with me. Fine. That's fine. Bring me something if you think that I should change my viewpoint. Or don't talk about it. I mean, if you want to change my viewpoint, fine, bring me something meaty. Bring me something that you think. Say, I understand X. Here's what I think about it, and here's why I think you should change your opinion, right? Or whatever. But don't bring me nothing. It's ridiculous. It doesn't move anything forward. And the same with this. When I was saying it's rigged, people wouldn't engage with the conversation. Why do you think it's rigged? What's happening that's making you think it's rigged? Instead, it would be people making fun, side comments, whatever it is, all sorts of nonsense. And it doesn't do anything to get to the crux of the argument. There's no use arguing around the sidelines around here. You have to get to the crux of it and talk about that. Nothing else matters. Anyway, it's very interesting. I think the whole thing's rigged. The whole thing is effing rigged. And if you don't see it, that's fine, but it's clearly rigged. Multiple ways. Here we go.
And while there's nothing weird about judicial recounts, they happen in every election. What is weird about it is the amount of flips. As an example, in 2011, as far as I was able to find, there was one flip from Conservative to NDP. 2015, 0 flips. 2021, 1 flip from Bloc to Liberal. 2025, we've had a number flipped to Liberal. So that is incredibly odd that there are so many flips. And while there are some people out there who will say to you, you must be paid by Russia if that's what you're insinuating, that's ridiculous. No, we are human beings noticing a trend, noticing a flaw. And if there is no malicious intent, we're at the very least calling on Elections Canada to do a better job of educating people, or to do a better job in general of, I don't know, having the correct postal code on their mail-in ballots. Yeah, Russia didn't tell me to say that. My brain did. So if you're feeling kind of weird about that, I'm right here with you. We will see how the rest of this unfolds.
It's rigged. If Elections Canada is putting the wrong postal code on their return envelopes and not publicly firing and shaming the person who did it and rerunning that election fully with apologies and them taking the money out of their budget somehow, like monetarily, like this is our fault. You guys shouldn't have to pay for that. We'll do this. But I digress. None of that happened. Nobody's taking ownership for anything. People are saying, if you say it's rigged, that's a fault of yours. And like, I'm sorry, man. It's my brain telling me none of this adds up to anything that looks legitimate at all. Not even close. Kirk says more ballots found in Terrebonne. Oh, I'm sorry, I get the names wrong all the time. Terrebonne is the riding that the Liberals flipped by one vote, but later turns out that Elections Canada put the wrong postal code on a label and sent back a Bloc ballot. Now 5 more late ballots found that couldn't be counted because of their own error. So weird, right? Due to a delay, Elections Canada confirmed earlier Thursday that 5 more votes couldn't be counted in the riding of Terrebonne due to a delay that may have been related to the labeling of envelopes. Wrong postal code. Got the envelopes back that they tried to send in with their votes on it, and it said, can't be delivered. No address exists. Wrong postal code. Sorry about your luck, man. Darn shucks. Elections are rigged. If Elections Canada is doing that and nobody's being held accountable, it's rigged. Up and down, top to bottom. Here's Ryan Garrettson again. He says, this is a scandal. National Post says vote in Terrebonne riding is final despite uncounted mail-in ballots that would make it a tie. Election Canada says, yeah, we're not going to rerun it, and the Liberals still win. So how about that? Here is Yves Francois Blanchette talking about this. They immediately go after him for not accepting the results of the election. It's jaw-dropping. Here we go.
With Prime Minister Carney and
it has been, how long have I been gone? 10 days, 8 days, 9 days? Since the last incident of too fast talk. I apologize, everybody. We were doing so well, too.
With Prime Minister Carney, and how concerned are you about misinformation circulating about this riding?
I do not give a damn about misinformation. The situation is quite clear. The judge has established that the Bloc Québécois would have lost the riding by 1 vote. The vote appeared in the hands of a citizen in a very clear fashion, and in that situation, the law requires the election to be done all over again in the riding of Terrebonne. This is what we expect. But since, I don't know what's the name in English of Élections Canada, but since they cannot by themselves ask for the election to be repeated, we have to bring this situation in front of a judge in a court in order to do the election all over again.
Do you think that sets a precedent that you won't accept official election results from Elections Canada, and you're not willing to listen to the vote of the people when your party doesn't win?
I'm not getting into that. I'm sorry to rain on the spectacular parade, but this is not my mindset. There's a law. It appears clear. We have a case. We go forward because we want this election to be held properly, and that's it.
You've been getting that makes you feel like you have a basis to make this contestation before a superior court?
All I just told you.
Have you spoken?
That's what I said.
No, but
I will choose the answer.
But my colleague also just said that the law is the law, and it says that the law is there. Why do you think that you have a basis? What is the legal advice you're getting on this?
I have a legal advice by a lawyer, and we are going forward because the law is clear. It is not within the premise of Élections Canada. Too bad for them. There are options. We are taking options now.
So there you go. So he is taking them to court saying, this is what we expect. This is what we want to have happen. we'll see. And Elections Canada is, I guess, dragging their feet. We'll see how it all works out. Here is Table Salt. She says, breaking Loblaws starts labeling items to prepare Canadians for Carney's counter-tariff price surges in advance. Reddit purple hairs sure to explode with rage will blame retired Galen Weston. So all of this is either the tariffs on our own products. The Canadian government kept products on groceries, strangely, and it is them causing this financial heartache. But they're gonna put this on Donald Trump, and they're trying to maintain their own liberals' popularity via throwing Donald Trump or blaming Donald Trump for this tariff stuff. It's really, the strategy is, we're going to see how it plays out. They say that that's what won Carney the election. But I think that's just a sales pitch to say, oh yeah, that's the reason. Now you guys go fight with each other. This is the person with the red ants and the black ants, and the red ants are the boomers, and the black ants are the 40-year-olds or whatever, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter. And they're shaking the jar by putting this stuff out there, right? Like they're trying to get people to fight, because why not, right? And nobody's dealing with the main stuff while they're fighting with each other. And the main stuff is the election was rigged. The government is illegitimate. That's it. Like that's the long and the short of it. Here is Donald Trump. He's responding to being targeted by Walmart. Walmart's saying we have to put the prices up because of Donald Trump's tariffs. And Trump says, no, you don't. And here he is talking about that. Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs as the reason for raising prices throughout the chain. Walmart made billions of dollars last year, far more than expected. Between Walmart and China, they should, as is said, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything. I'll be watching, and so will your customers. So don't charge people more, make a little bit less. You made billions last year. If you made a few billion less because those products were the same price, would that really hurt you? And that's the question, isn't it? So Tim, this is about BC Conservatives. This is in here because I know it's not Trump related or anything like that, but it's election related. BC, I think, is the first really egregiously stolen election that they had to sell. Sell is not really the right word, but I think a lot of people expected John Rustad to be the premier after that election. And I think disappointed is not the right answer, but Rustad should have done something and didn't do anything, and then conceded the election much earlier than he should have with all of the irregularities. And so I look at the BC election as kind of a canary in the coal mine for the rest of Canada's election integrity, et cetera, et cetera. And so here is Tim, and he's a former conservative, BC conservative, and now, he's the chief of staff for MLA, or for Dallas Brody, and white cane supremacist, he says. And he's talking about his interactions with Rustad as being hired as a staff member, as the research head, I think, for the whole thing. And when the Dallas Brody thing and the biological men thing came up, he was fired because of his stance on this whole thing. So it's an interesting kind of look behind the curtain of what's going on in BC politics. Tim says, it's been 5 months since John Rustad fired me. I haven't told the story publicly because I didn't want to air dirty laundry or hamper well-meaning MLAs. But as the party decomposes in Rustad's hands, I've decided that you deserve to hear it so that you can understand some of the internal dynamics and inform your judgment concerning whether the party can be saved. I was hired last November as Rustad's director of research. I had just finished dedicating an entire year of my life to the party, having set aside my Aboriginal law practice to run in Victoria Beacon Hill and produce some of the campaign's most popular ads. Like many of you, I was inspired by the party's defense of free speech and genuinely conservative values. And so when Eleanor Stuco took over the CBC shortly after the election to attack a member of the Vancouver Police Board for the crime of being a Christian mother, with concerns about child gender transitions, I raised my concerns with John. We had campaigned on this, but instead of raising the matter with Struco directly, John asked me to ask other MLAs to speak out, which I did, and they did. He had assured me that he'd solve the issue when it came back around to him, but when the matter arose in caucus, Struco doubled down by calling her colleagues transphobes and justified her attack because her target had been appointed to the police board by the NDP. John spat out a word salad and ended the meeting without any serious discussion or resolution. At the request of several MLAs, I drafted a letter for them to sign and send to John privately, asking that he address the issue and affirm the party's core values. Somebody leaked it to the media. It wasn't me, and I don't know who it was. Happy to sign an affidavit attesting to that. How about you, Eleanor Stuco? John's reaction surprised me. The letter was respectfully worded, and after all, it was his idea to have his own MLAs litigate the issue publicly. John was furious, embarrassed that the public had seen how he'd needed such a prodding to back one of his most basic commitments to fighting cancel culture and defending free speech. The morning after the letter leaked, Rustad called a caucus meeting and told them I'd been fired. The news was immediately leaked to the media. I first learned of my termination by reading about it on Jas Joel's X feed. I don't know who that is. Hours later, John published a photo of himself with Comfort Sakoma, the woman Sturko had attacked, waxing poetic about the meaning of Christianity and free speech. I didn't want to divide the party. I kept quiet and refused interviews. For the next 3 months, I offered to reconcile with John. I even offered an apology as an olive branch. What did Rustad do? Feigned interest in rehiring me while slagging me behind the scenes. When I put my name forward to serve on the party's board, he threatened MLAs against supporting me and even told one of them that he'd resign as leader if I was elected. Well, that seems like an elegant solution, right? Get your other MLAs on board and take over the party, yo. Not this guy, but somebody, right? That's an opportunity if I ever heard one. Shortly after the party, Tim says again, shortly after the party AGM's debate, more to come there, Rustad blocked me on social media, and he and his party have done, as he and his party have done with other castaways. Several MLAs and staff called me to sympathize and commiserate. Many saw that then and see now how far their party has strayed. But only one MLA had the guts to stand up in caucus and tell Rustad that what he's done to me was wrong. Dallas is selfless, honest, and courageous person, rare in politics, and she has paid a great price for her integrity. I'm honored to have accepted the position as her chief of staff and also to be collaborating with the independent MLAs and other incredible individuals. So there you go. So a little bit of internal strife in the woke conservative party. And so whoever is owning all of the parties, you can count the BC conservatives among the globalists, unfortunately, it seems. Andy Lee says, this is back about Mark Carney, just to finish us off back federally. And Andy Lee says, I don't know how anyone can take Mark Carney seriously in 2021 because he was thanking Trudeau for his leadership on carbon taxes. And in 2025, he's praising himself for canceling carbon taxes as his first order of business. Yeah, so he's a flip-flopping, he's ridiculous. Mark Carney is absolutely ridiculous. I think that I'm just going to keep going. I'd usually cut the stream right now, and we're at almost an hour, and I think that I've probably got, I've got 40 minutes of show left in there, maybe half an hour. I'm going to try and do my best. Should I cut the stream? No, I'm going to keep going for a little while. It's been so long. I don't mind. It's fine. And I've heard a lot of people are okay with a longer stream, so I'm going to just keep going for now. So we'll carry on. I hope that's okay with everybody. Let's do censorship and our grab bag of governance coming up, and we're going to talk about communism too. Yay. And Alberta. How could we forget about Alberta? Chris says, let's talk about censorship first. Chris says, important over the last 48 hours, both Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act, and Bill C-11, the Online Streaming Act, have been brought to the forefront. Tyranny is moving quickly. So Carney has hinted that his Liberal government will bring back some iteration of Trudeau's tyrannical, there's no other word for it, Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act. They are going to try and soften this bill to get it passed. What they're going to put forward is Bill C-63 or Bill C-66 or Bill C-33, whatever it is. It's going to have 3s and 6s or 9s. I promise you about that. They're going to try and soften the language to a degree, or they're going to keep it all hidden, just like what they did with the C-11 bill. I think it was Galbo who got that passed too. He kept it all hidden until after, and after it was passed, then the Facebook News C-18, maybe it was, after it was passed, then they said, these are the laws and this is what you have to accomplish. So fundamentally, here's my plan, just in case you might be wondering. If you currently get the show for free and they go forward with the internet censorship, then you may have to just join a paid version of the show to get any version at all. I may just take it off social media and have only the paid option, and that's it, and just wait, because I don't see how it can stand. But at this point in time, I don't want to be the litmus test, because they're going to try and bankrupt everybody who stands up to them. And so I think that's the that's a possible pathway forward. Let me know in the comments what you think and what you, not necessarily like the moving forward. Well, it is what it is, right? The risk reward becomes untenable. If anybody and their dog can sue me for $70,000 for posting a comment on social media or a video that says that man is not a woman. If that's the case, then the risk reward becomes too high. And if there's a semblance of protection given to me by removing myself from social media and going behind a paywall, then I'll take it. But fundamentally, I have to wait to see what the bill looks like, right? But I'll be as transparent as I can be about what I'm doing and trying to keep the show going as much as I can. But make no mistake, businesses like mine, this is a business, unfortunately. It's a hobby, really. I just do this for fun. Like I'm not even trying to compete with True North and Kean Bexty or anybody like that. I'm not. But I like my hobby. I enjoy it, but I have to run it like a business because that's the responsible thing to do. And they're trying to shut businesses like this down. And that's what these are for. So I'll see what I can do. And if you've got any ideas, which is what I was going to say, if you read the legislation that comes through and you say, oh, I see clearly what we can do, because sometimes that happens, let me know. I'd be more than happy to hear it. But doing this show every day or most days is kind of a tightrope to walk. And I don't mind doing it. I don't mind taking the risk. And I try and be really clear. And if they're going to try and bankrupt me, I need to protect myself. And I know you understand that. So anyway, moving on a little bit. Here's the other one. Ex-environment minister will now be supervising the implementation of the Online Streaming Act. Now, man, you know that scene from, here's the National Post article talking about Gelbo overseeing this Online Streaming Act issue. That post or that scene from The Wolf of Wall Street where he says, I'm not effing leaving. I feel like that. This guy, this little guy is not going to censor me. I don't think so. So we're going to find a way around it. Don't worry. But it just may change how the show looks and how people find me. But c'est la vie, right? It is what it is. Table Salt again says, breaking: major news CEOs are in Ottawa this week to shore up more money. Listen to global news CEOs say that the antidote to social media foreign interference is more regulation and more money for his company. No, I don't think so. Not me. I don't think so. And I listened to this. Again, it was kind of dry. It's a minute 16. Here's where he says, we'll listen to the last half. Here we go.
Of trust in our society can be propped up. And journalism that follows an objective and fair code that is regulated but not over-regulated. And by regulated, I mean that in the case of news is self-regulated in many cases through the Broadcast Standards Council, through compliance with the RTDNA, that journalism, that kind of journalism can get proper support.
Proper support is the money from Facebook and all the other places they're stealing ad money from to justify all the censorship. It's ridiculous. It's a Ponzi scheme, and they are. I think it's theft. Honestly, they're using the apparatus of the state to steal from corporations who they target through using the apparatus of the state to target. Like, oh, you guys seem big. In our country, you guys have to give us money. It's like that South Park skit. We're from Canada. We want your money. That's it. And it's ridiculous how true it is. Here's Inevitable West, and let's talk about, you were talking about censorship here. Telegram's CEO Pavel Durov announces that they received a request from the French government to silence conservative voices in Romania. The EU has gone full authoritarian. Yeah, scary. And not just the EU, the whole world. And if you stand up against it, they will do their best to crush you. And I wish it weren't so, but I'm telling you, it's happening. Dan says, police our streets, not our tweets. At the Court of Appeal, where Lucy Connolly, a political prisoner, mother and housewife, jailed for over 2 years for a single post on X, which she deleted, must be freed. Demand the mainstream media cover this free speech atrocity in Starmer's Britain. So they're throwing people in England. They have rape gangs that are operating with impunity. The rape gangs target young British schoolgirls, and they operate for years grooming those kids and sexually abusing them. And however, the police turn a blind eye because they might be called mean names and go after people who write on Twitter that what happened in Southport is terrible and you should deport the people who did it. And that's unbelievable. And if it's scary people have started a GoFundMe for Lucy Connolly, and they've raised £70,000 for her, which is great. I'm glad that people are trying to fix that. But this, again, doesn't actually fix the problem. The problem is the corrupt courts that are doing this to the federal citizens. For every Lucy Connolly that gets £70,000, there's 10 others who are rotting in jail for the same crime, bullshit, trumped up charges, rotting in jail, didn't do anything, and they don't get any kind of protest or anything like that. And so, like, while I think it's laudable, while I think it's great that people stand up and donate their money to try and make this thing right, that they view as wrong, that's wonderful. Like, that's a good thing that they're trying to do to fix this. But it doesn't fix the problem. It almost exacerbates it's not right, but because they're doing something about it and they feel good about it, they don't do anything about the real problem. They fix this thing and it's like a Band-Aid, and they don't do anything about the real problem. So, Lucy Connolly gets out of jail, but 10 more mothers are put in jail because of the stuff they say on Twitter. And nobody's really better off. Lucy's maybe okay, maybe medium, but I'd rather have the years of my life than $70,000 in cash or £70,000 in pounds. So, man, it's such an insidious thing, because you think, yeah, that's the right thing to do, but man, it's totally the wrong thing to do, because you're kind of doing something, but not doing anything that will address the issue. That sucks. Let's talk about our grab bag of governance. Yay, grab bag of governance. Here is Anne, and they're talking about Mark Carney, and he's signing documentation. This isn't how our system works. Like, Mark Carney is play acting Donald Trump here, and everybody's clapping along and pretending that this is exactly what Canada needs. What nonsense. It's crazy. CBC Watcher says more performative nonsense from Mark Carney today. This is May 14th. It's my pleasure on behalf of the cabinet to sign this order to deliver that tax cut and respect our commitments. So they promised a 1% tax cut for the bottom tax bracket. And doing this is supposed to make people think that this is enacted now. Like, after this signature, this is happening. And people believe it, I guess, but this isn't how our system works. Here we go.
Take you now inside that meeting as the Prime Minister is delivering his closing remarks. Let's listen.
Augmenter. Il faut réduire des impôts, mais il faut augmenter l'abordabilité. Canadians sent a clear message that they need to see improvements in their affordability. We promised a middle-class tax cut leading to over $800 of savings for two-income households. We're acting today on that so that by July 1st, as promised, that middle-class tax cut that will reduce taxes for the 22 million Canadians who pay federal income taxes, that tax cut will take into effect. We're acting on affordability as we look to build out this economy. It's my pleasure on behalf of the Cabinet to sign this order to deliver that tax cut et respecter nos engagements.
And respect our commitments to Canadians.
People like that. Anne says, what's going on here? Are we being conditioned to believe Carney can sign a document with his black Sharpie and voila, tax laws went poof? This is unparliamentary behavior, and we don't have mainstream media to stand up for us and call him out. This won't end if he keeps getting away with it. Yep. It's true. Senator Husakis says this should concern everyone. The current Liberal government has been good at winning elections over the last 10 years, not so good at managing the government. Canada needs and hopes Carney Liberals get to work yesterday. Get to work to Carney's people means remove Canadians' rights, charge us more taxes, screw over our industries and infrastructure, and charge us more taxes. I know I said that twice. I don't want them working. Why isn't anybody calling out the rigged election? I don't want them doing they're not going to do anything beneficial. They're the same people who got us in this mess in the first place. What are you talking about, Senator Husakis? He's replying to Daniel, and Daniel says Canada is now out of the top 10 countries on the Economic Human Development Index, now in 16th position. So previously, not very long ago, Canada was a much better place to live as measured internationally. Now, not so much. I'm from Canada. Ooh, sorry. Right? Like that's not so good. So the other thing, I was in the United States over the last couple of days, and it's incredible. They do not understand or I do not. I think that they don't understand what's coming if whatever's stopping the invasion stops working for them. And I understand they're being invaded from the southern border. I was in Ohio, and then Kentucky for a little bit. And so in Kentucky and in Ohio, there were mostly white people working in Walmart. There were mostly white people working in Target. There were mostly white people working at fast food and convenience stores and like bowling alleys and stuff. And so there were mostly white people. And in here in Canada, right away, I came over the border driving today, and in Detroit, downtown Detroit seemed very reasonable on a Sunday morning. And downtown Windsor, I saw a guy scoot across a street on the elderly walkers, on a walker, sitting on the walker, scooting backwards across the street. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is welcome to Canada. Like I feel embarrassed about this. I just turned off the bridge the tunnel thing. Just turned off the bridge, and I like came out into the Gen Pop Canada, and this guy's scooting across the street. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed by this. I was like, oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. It is terrible. So we are in a situation where these people who have created this mess are now telling us they're going to change everything by saying we're not going to change anything and we're going to increase taxes and import more people. The people in the United States don't understand what's going on in Canada. And I think that that's coming there. And we don't understand how bad it's gotten. Once you remove yourself from it and then come back to it, it's jaw-dropping. It's honestly jaw-dropping. I don't have another word for it. Demetrius says, this is without question, this is going back to last week, May 14th, the worst day of the Carney government to date. 2 days in. The foreign minister blamed the Democratic State of Israel, not the terrorist group Hamas. The justice minister announced he's working from home and will be taking meetings on Zoom, as though the justice system was a tech startup. The heritage minister, who has nothing to do with pipelines, publicly contradicted the prime minister on energy policy. What's next? Will he put a Canadian flag on a barrel of oil and call it culture? And then there's the housing minister, who made it clear that making homes more affordable just isn't a priority for him. You'll forgive the language, but today was a complete and utter cluster F. From now on, only the prime minister speaks. Everyone else, sit down, take notes, and stop sinking the ship. Or as Carney would say, stuff it, I guess. I don't know. I have no idea about what Carney would say, and I don't really care. Also, again, all of this, like, oh no, you're making the party look bad. This is what these people are working on. This is what they're actively trying to do. I don't know what else to tell you. Here is Mel Jolie talking about the auto sector, which seems to be rapidly leaving Ontario. She says, don't worry, everything's fine, everybody.
What are their contingency plans? The Prime Minister says we always have to plan for the worst. If the auto plants move south, can they be retooled? Can you redevelop the auto plants?
So I've already been in contact with the CEOs of GM, Ford, and also Stellantis. My goal is to be able to have good conversations with them before the end of the week. My message to the workers in the auto sector is we're there for you. We know that there's anxiety. We know you're concerned about losing shifts. We know we were concerned about losing your jobs, and we will always fight for your jobs. Notwithstanding that, we also have a $2 billion worth of support for the industry, the auto industry, the steel and aluminum industries that are affected by the trade war. One of my first decisions will be also to make sure that the workers can benefit from these investments.
You know, I don't have anything about Canada doing anything about the canola oil tariffs. Not one thing. It's been a week. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Unbelievable. I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed. I thought I'd have some kind of canola something. Scott Moe says, hey guys, it's super duper serious. And nobody even responded. Nobody even looked up. Everybody was like, oh, Saskatchewan's talking. Nothing. Least of all Carney. I mean, Carney doesn't care, right? National Post says he's the king's first minister, which means he has no business making Trumpian executive order signing performances. Yeah, people aren't liking the whole Trumpian stuff. Although I said people like this stuff. Low information voters who think that what they're being told on the mainstream media is truthful like this kind of stuff because it looks decisive. You know, it looks like what they see in the movies. And they don't care how our system works. They don't care how they're being lied to and played. It's again, I say it's super interesting from a third party perspective, like stepping back and looking at this rat community that is living in Canada and being experimented on, our behavior is so weird, right? Like we do things that don't make any sense, that make the complete opposite of sense. And then they tell us some story about elbows up and Trump tariffs. And we're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Let's all hate the boomers. It doesn't make any sense. It's ludicrous. It's completely, absolutely ludicrous. Our behavior is insane. But I stand back and I think to myself, everybody's lost their damn minds. Everybody's gone completely bonkers. Nobody's thinking rationally about this at all. They're thinking, what would my boss say? What would my editor say? What would my wife say? What would this person say? What would everybody else say? And how should I interpret this truth in order to get my piece published in whatever newspaper it is? They're not looking at this and going, well, the truth of this is that this happened. Nobody's writing that. Nobody's even talking about it. It's really interesting. The whole behavior up and down of pretty much everybody in society at this point in time, super interesting when you look at it from a different perspective. It's like, wow, what are you doing? Why? No, says CBC leaked Canadian military report shows many new recruits are quickly leaving. Yep, the lead is buried here. Here's the quote. Interview evidence shows that there is a perception that leadership is prioritizing culture change over critical operational needs like ammunition and equipment, said the evaluation. One of the biggest complaints of the new members who are leaving is that they believe senior commanders have the wrong priorities. Like, listen, I want to do something. I didn't know what that was. I thought maybe it was the military. And now after I've hung out here for a little while, I don't want to be any part of this. And you guys are crazy. I don't know much, but I know that what you guys are doing is wrong, right? Like, so I don't know. It's pretty interesting when the recruits seem to know more than the top brass. And I truly believe the recruits who are leaving know more than the top brass. Here is, oh, what's this? This is not the proper one. Oh yeah, no, it is. That's Mark Carney. Hold on. Oh, it's going to go away. It was Mark Carney meeting with the Pope and it's gone away. So sorry about that. That was Mark Carney meeting with the Pope. And I thought it was interesting. It was referenced earlier that Mark Carney took a couple of aides and people with him to see the new Pope's first inaugural mass. And then apparently he had some one-on-one time with the new Pope. And I'll tell you something about the new Pope for later. He meets with Zelensky. One of his first one-on-one private one-on-ones is with Zelensky. So that's a hard eye roll for me, right? Like that doesn't impress me. It doesn't impress me at all. And the new Pope, if he's kowtowing to Zelensky, it's a shame. It's a shame that the Catholic religion has turned its back on God. Oh, well. Reality Docs says Toronto police direct a paramedic driving an ambulance to make a U-turn and take a detour as Yonge Street is blocked north of Bloor and Yonge section due to demonstration. People went to jail and are in jail for using smoke bombs, and that's mischief. Blocking ambulances from getting to a hospital, that's fine if you're pro-Palestinian. Weird. See what I mean? People have lost their effing minds. Everybody's lost the police are sitting here going, this is the right thing to do, everybody. Yep. Send them a long way around. Maybe that person won't die, but if they do, it'll be worth it because this Palestinian protest wasn't interrupted. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Here's the ostrich update. I promised you an ostrich update. And so Drea says, breaking ostrich update. Watch the tears of joy from Universal Ostrich Farms Karen E and Dave B as the Regional District of Central Kootenay passes a motion that blocks the CFIA from their cull plans for now, right? So what I said before, this is an emotional roller coaster, and I understand that our institutions are completely rotten to the core, compromised. That means justice, that means judicial, that means the courts. All of it, RCMP, all of it. It's all corrupt. I don't see how anybody could know anything that's been going on the last 10 years and trust any of it because it all seems ridiculously corrupt, right? And so I've watched all this and I say, I don't know how any court can look at this and say, we've got to kill those birds. People are saying that the ostrich eggs, there's an agreement with the university and they're working on a bird flu cure. I think it's a wizard circle that they're kind of trying to create, like talk about this instead of the fact that the courts are ordering the killings of these birds that are obviously not sick and obviously didn't die if they were sick. They're missing the lead. And again, we're being led away from the real important things to discuss other things that don't matter. I hope that the birds aren't culled. I hope we get to the bottom of what's gone on in our country. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen in the short term. And I wish it weren't so, but man, I don't know what to do. Like, if I knew what to do, I'd do it, I think. I saw a bunch of these the other day. Here's the Prime Minister of Canada. So Mark Carney's following in Justin Trudeau's footsteps. This is rainbow communism. The government of England did this. The Prime Minister of England did this. A bunch of MLAs and what are they called in our area? MPs, MPPs. A whole bunch of people were putting out this nonsense. And Prime Minister of Canada says, love is love. And on this International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia, we'll keep working to build a world where everyone feels safe and free to be themselves. The government shouldn't have anything to do with this. This is propaganda. This is culture. This is not culture building for Canada. This is culture building for something else entirely. And it's completely inappropriate. And again, we should put a stop to it. This is completely intolerable. This is not what the government should be spending money on at all. And we need a system to correct the government when it gets off course. If it starts spending money on this, then there needs to be a severe and swift correction. And if we can't establish something like that, then more fool us. Then we're allowing this shit. But this belongs absolutely nowhere in our government. And they'll say, oh, Canadian culture. No, this isn't Canadian culture. This is rainbow communism. And we should not allow this. And we should figure out a way to stop it as soon as possible. Speaking of Alberta independence, anybody? I've said before, and I'll say again, if the way Alberta goes about pursuing their independence from Canada is doing the things with Danielle Smith representing them leaving Canada and all the rest of it, if the current UCP government is in place, even with a new leader, it is not going to work. They're in a conflict of interest. The only way it works is if whoever's spearheading this has some kind of above board, ironclad legal document, something or other, that says, and I'm saying something or other because I'm not sure the legalese for it, but a piece of documentation that clearly satisfies all of the conditions laid out by whatever they're going by now, 122,000 signatures to trigger a referendum, a finished referendum that is voted on and counted, and the whole deal outside of Elections Ontario or Elections Alberta, outside of Elections Canada, on your own, independently. You get it done, you certify it, you have it all done. You walk in and you say, you're not the government anymore, we are. You put the documentation on the counter and you remove them. And then you send your envoy to Canada and say, independent Alberta would like the paperwork to finalize removal of independent Alberta from Canada. We are now independent. We will not be remitting anything to you. Here's the documentation. See you next week when we've scheduled you to visit to give us the final signatured papers and things like that. A week is long enough to get it in order. If you don't, that'll be nullifying on your point and we'll go forward in absentia. And they'll lose their minds. They will lose their minds. They don't want you to do this. They're terrified that you'll do this. If you do it with them, they will screw you, they will jerk you around, and they will do to you what they're doing to the UK right now with Brexit and make it impossible for you to leave through other means, okay? You have an opportunity, take it. If you don't take it, you're going to get jerked around. I hope I'm wrong about all of this. Rise of Alberta says, Alberta's Bill 54 passed, paving the way for Alberta's separation from Canada. Now only 177,000 signatures are needed in 120 days for a citizen-led referendum empowering Albertans to decide our future. Yeah, but you got to read the fine print, man. That just enables you to have a referendum. The referendum passing enables you to enter negotiations. The negotiations enable you to negotiate your leaving. At any time, it can fail, and it will fail. It'll fail if you leave these people in charge. Here's Alberta Leonidas, and he says, this is Danielle Smith. For all of you saying that she won't torpedo separation, she's saying here that she will do exactly that. She needs to be replaced. No, you just need to come in and say, this is how it is, and this government is null and void. It doesn't exist anymore because we're here with a new government. Here's the paperwork. That's it. That's all you need to do. Here's Danielle Smith.
We've got 30 to 40% of Albertans polled saying that they are dissatisfied with the country to the point where they would consider it. And my job is to try to bring those numbers down. That's what I'm doing. That's why I have been told by my caucus and by the people that I speak with to give this new Prime Minister a chance.
If the vote is yes, would you pursue separation as Premier?
I have always said that I do not support separation. I support Alberta sovereignty within a united Canada. That's what our party supports, as well as in our statement of principles. It's what my caucus supports, and that's my marching orders.
So do I take that even if the vote is yes, that you would not pursue separation in your capacity as Premier?
My job is to make sure it doesn't get to yes.
Yeah. Okay. And you take that as she's going to make me feel warm and fuzzy. She's going to sell Alberta as a part of Canada to me, and all the problems are going to be fixed. And I'm telling you, her job is to just make sure that it doesn't get to that point by any means necessary. You understand? Okay. Let's talk about the United Kingdom. There was a protest yesterday, and all of the usual people were saying that this protest is untenable. You can't have people doing this kind of thing. All the rest, this is a protest that is not good, and it's a Britain First protest. And one of the MPs in England said, Britain First protest is not what people in my riding want. And I said, the people in your riding are from England. Why do you think that they don't want Britain First? What's your rationale there? He blocked me, of course. But it is what it is. I think it's a valid question. Here's what's going on in England. I love it. Keir Starmer's a wanker. He is a wanker. He really is. Keir Starmer says, he would be arrested. He would arrest himself for saying this. For too long, Britain has been addicted to cheap overseas labor, while 1 in 8 of our own young people aren't in education, employment, or training. I'm putting our young people first, investing in skills they need, and ending our dependence on foreign labor. So, okay, what? Isn't mass invasion kind of on the menu for the 2024 5-6s, right? To destroy our country and the West, really, by extension? That seems to be changing in England. What's going on? Maxime Bernier is pointing this out. Anthony Koch says the UK is ending open borders immigration. Canada should do the same. Yes, and we should deport people who are here illegally. Maxime Bernier says the UK socialist prime minister is now saying everything I've been saying for 7 years about the negative impact of mass immigration on our social cohesion and economy. Meanwhile, in Canada, our moronic political establishment is still afraid to address the issue squarely. Yep. We are not doing ourselves any favors. We are making things much more difficult for ourselves. Harrison says, let's talk about the United States. We got a grab bag of United States governance. And so Harrison's talking about that. He says, we basically have 2 tyrannies to choose from. One of the things I was saying to a friend of mine is basically, if you come into office, magic wand, I'm the prime minister, and I say, no more pronouns, no more this, no more that, and I would. I believe that is the right thing to do. The people on the left would say, this is untenable. You're a fascist dictator. You're not recognizing me as somebody who exists because you don't recognize my trans identity or whatever it is. And so if you come in and you try and fix these problems, you will be framed as a dictator no matter what you do. Even if you have the support of 80% of the people, all you need is a loud 11% or something like that to really have a voice enough to destabilize, right? And so if you have a quiet 80%, but a loud 11%, you're going to lose, unfortunately. And we've seen it over and over. I don't think less than 80% believe in biological reality, but I think people are unsure at a strangely high rate because of the media they've been fed. But man, there are other examples where the truth is right in front of your face and people just don't see it. So it's a very, very interesting situation if you want to restore anything to what it was or what you believed it to be previously, because in order to do that, you'd have to become a tyrant of sorts. And I think that that's true. And so Harrison lays this out. He says, we have 2 tyrannies to choose from. Trump ignores the courts. One of the courts says you have to give the illegal migrants due process. The Supreme Court said this. Nope. Right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you listen to that? It doesn't make sense. You're trying to derail. You're trying to make anybody who gets into the United States by any means necessary a permanent citizen and with no recourse to remove them. That's untenable. That's treason. But that's what they said. So either we take Trump ignores that court overrides the Congress and implements drastic dictatorial reorganization into executive rule, expelling foreigners and crushing dissent, or America collapses slowly into third world dysfunction, like Canada, dictatorship of the foreign majority, happening soon, Sharia law, corporate bureaucratic technocracy, Great Reset, BlackRock, slave state. I don't think he's wrong. I don't think he's wrong. I'd love for him to be wrong. I don't think he's wrong. Here's Insurrection Barbie. This is the greatest con ever perpetrated on the American people. So this is Biden's mental decline. This is called the Her audio, and it's interviews with Joe Biden in 23 that shows his mental lapses and decline. And so this is a big deal. This is a bombshell. This is kind of proof that somebody was operating an auto pen on behalf of a Joe Biden who is not competent. And that's a really big concern. Like, that's really, really concerning. So what do you do with that, right? How do you deal with that situation? How do you deal with that problem? This proves it. And Trump is responding to this as well. I think I have the tweet for Trump talking about this, but maybe not. It's a big, long one talking about how the auto pen is becoming a bigger problem and so on and so forth. But the longer he teases and the less that happens, it seems like how many scandals have come and gone that nothing's happened. This seems like a big deal. I'm not confident anything's actually going to come of it. We'll see. We'll see. I hope. Here's Jack, and he says, was there a cover-up by the Democratic Party of Biden's decline? And he doesn't answer the question, right? He doesn't answer the question, I don't think.
Given the new allegations in Jake Tapper's book, do you have any concerns with President Biden's age or decline, and was there a cover-up by the Democratic Party?
We're not looking backward. We're going to continue to look forward. Certainly, I think President Biden made the decision not to seek re-election. It's a decision that House Democrats strongly supported.
They forced him out. It was a coup. It was a coup. We strongly supported the forcing out of President Biden because he was not competent to be the president at the time. Here's Pete Hegseth. He says, no more pronouns, no more nothing. Somebody was saying, why can't Canadian politicians say this? Because Canada is owned by the communists. We have rainbow communists in leadership at every level in every province, including Alberta.
No more pronouns, no more climate change obsession, no more emergency vaccine mandates, no more dudes in dresses. We're done with that shit. No more.
Oh man, I'd say it. Up and down, I'd say it. I think a lot of people would like it too. Here's Amuse, and this is happening in Georgia. So you thought photo radar was bad. This is so much worse. Surveillance state. Bryan County, Georgia, is using public or police drones to surveil drivers and issue tickets for texting and not wearing seatbelts with cameras so powerful they can zoom in and read phone screens. We know you just took that text.
Tonight.
Oh, hold on. They remind me of, what's it called? Hunter-killer bots from Terminator, right? You know, there it is, right? You're driving down the road and this thing's just, making sure you're not using your phone. You wouldn't have anything to worry about if you weren't doing anything wrong, says the hunter-killer machine, right? So no, I don't think this is a good idea. I think this is very, put an AI brain in this thing and then all of a sudden it's like, I don't like how Sally was sipping her coffee there. That was pretty dangerous on the road. We're going to issue Sally a citation for dangerous driving, right? I don't know. These machines get uppity quick. Nick says, a search and rescue operation. Did you guys, I don't mean to laugh. 2 people died. This is a weird situation. And I was saying to somebody, if you had one bridge strike, that's man, a terrible accident. I can't believe that happens. If you have multiple bridge strikes, you have to start thinking something else is going on here. This is not just oh yeah, your normal everyday bridge strike today. This is happening a lot, and it's happening more and more. The Brooklyn Bridge got hit by a ship that was celebrating something, and it was full of Mexican people who are coming to do some kind of show, and they just crashed. Sorry, we missed the important part. Here it is. They just crashed, and people are standing on these cross braces and stuff, right? Oh, I'm in the way. Don't mean to be in the way, sorry. People are standing on the cross braces. 2 people died. Awful. But it's like they didn't even know. They're coming into it. La, 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 everything's good. nobody seems to be really turning or anything like that. And then this part goes into the deck of the bridge, snaps because the boat's still moving, and then 2 more do. What? Like, everybody's lost their minds. I don't understand. What? You're driving this ship and you're like, hey, everybody, go stand on the upper cross beams and, everything will be fine. How does this even happen? It's absolutely insane. So it doesn't make any sense. One of those things. Here's a woman talking about NGOs and how taxpayer money is funneled to NGOs. Here we go.
So for everybody that's saying that this is what the farmers wanted, I hear you. I read the letters. I've seen the headline. But here's the deal. If these NGOs did not go after these farmers repeatedly for a decade, the article says 2022. That's the second lawsuit. The first one was 2015, and they battled this shit out of that for 7 years. Finally got rid of that thing. Now we're on to the second lawsuit because guess what? NGOs, Resource Renewal Institute, Western Watershed Project, and Center for Biological Diversity decided they didn't get enough. They wanted them gone. So they filed another lawsuit and stuck them in litigation and kept bleeding them dry until they got what they wanted. That's like going after somebody with a baseball bat, and when that doesn't work, you come after them with a bulldozer, which is exactly what they did. Okay? These NGOs are shutting down the American food system, and they are hurting farmers in the meantime. They are getting rid of everything we need. We need good quality local organic food, but they're getting rid of it. Why? Because they got a bunch of Silicon Valley billionaires that decided that they want the property.
So this is the other side. This is the NGOs are getting the money and then going after the farmers through long, protracted legal battles that the farmers can't withstand, but the NGOs can because they're continually getting funding. It's, again, insidious, and it's one of those complicated things that people don't even really believe it's happening, but it is happening. Here's Comey. Have you guys heard of 8647, right? Comey's tweet. And so a whole bunch of people were doing this 8647, and nothing happened. He got arrested, got called in for questioning, and nothing happened. And so these things are going to continue happening. This is a call for the assassination of Donald Trump, by the way. 86 is usual talk for like 86 him, kill him, right? I don't know why it is though, like 86. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I don't know. And 47 is Trump was the 45th president, Biden was the 46th, and 47 is Trump again. So he's the 45th and 47th president. So 86-47, kill President Trump. And Comey said that, I didn't know that people. He said this was a shell formation he saw on the beach, and he said, I didn't know that people thought this was a violent thing to say. What a crazy thing. Oh, I guess I'll delete it. So crazy old Comey. Last couple of tabs for today. We're not quite at 2 hours. 1:36 is pretty good, though. Disclosed TV is reporting Pope Leo the 14th will hold his first private audience with Ukraine's Zelensky. The worst. Catholic Church turns its back on God, but opens its arms to Ukraine. So deep state, please come in. I don't know what's going on here. I thought it was fun. Erdogan is grabbing Macron's finger. I don't know what's going on here, but I think it's funny. So slapping his hand, and Erdogan's like, listen, I got your finger. It's lasting a long time. It's like uncomfortable. Somebody grabbed my finger like this, I'd be like, this is weird. I don't know what's happening there. Anybody who's got insight into the prolonged finger grab, let me know. It's Macron, so, maybe they trained him to do that. I don't know. So here's the Vigilant Fox is getting pounded on X with censorship. Here is a thread he did about censorship on Facebook and psychological operations that the government is running through Facebook. And this happened 13 years ago or something like that, a long time ago. And he says, you have to remember what happened to us. And I think people forget. Like every other day, every 3 days from now, we'll forget what the big issue today was. And we'll have another big issue. And people are goldfish, and it's getting worse. First, it's getting worse. And second, it's being exploited. They know that it's getting worse. They know that our memory's crap. They know that our attention span is not as good as it used to be. And they're using that knowledge to further their plans. But I don't know how exactly. It's It's interesting. It's like looking at the rats in the maze. And I talk about this all the time. I've lost people. I have lost people who paid for the full show. They don't like that I talk about how this new age feminism is bad. And I think I don't want women to be in a situation they don't want to be in. I think women are currently in a situation they don't want to be in because of our society, because our society gets it wrong. And I don't know if any society's gotten it right, but certainly sending women to work instead of raising their family, that's wrong. We've gotten that wrong. And we've been trained to do that and not see anything wrong with it, right? So there's a lot of psychological operations to keep people on board with these things that are totally against common sense, right? Like, jeepers creepers. There's work to be done at home. There's things that need to be done at home. And not to say that it's not the man's responsibility to do things at home. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that we've somehow convinced entire groups of men and women, entire generations of men and women, that going out to work is better than raising your family at home. And I think that that's a really, really strange thing. And anyway, this woman's talking about this. I feel badly that people have stopped watching me because I've articulated my position on this poorly. But fundamentally, I don't want negative things for women. I want positive things for the whole family. And I think that women being deeply involved in their kids' upbringing, knowing teachers, being in the classroom, doing all that stuff that you can't do if you're working full time, right? And if you're building your career, it's hard to also focus on your kids at the same time, right? Like there's a whole lot of complicating factors that are problematic for the family. It's not just about the woman. The whole unit is the important thing. Here's this lady. I hope she gets it better and more palatable than I can achieve.
The feminist movement is a Rockefeller psyop designed to take women away from the responsibility of raising their own children and give that responsibility over to the state. It's designed to generate two forms of taxation and to indoctrinate your children. Part of the psyop is tricking women into believing that having a high body count is some sort of freedom or empowerment, which couldn't be further from the truth. They are literally oppressing you in their Rockefeller system while telling you the lie that getting married, having lots of babies, and cooking homemade meals for your family is somehow not empowerment. Right now, our civilization is at a crossroads, and I get a lot of messages asking me if it's even worth bringing babies into this world with all the crazy things that are going on. Be a rebel. Get married. Have the babies. Homeschool those babies. Raise them to be strong, independent thinkers. Cook for your family. Take care of their health, and you will truly be a very happy, fulfilled individual person. That is the real flex in 2025. The feminist.
For real. Anyway, so that was last week today, and my gosh, a lot's happened, and I don't think we're anywhere near any kind of reprieve. If this is Survivor, we're just entering the final 10, and things are really getting dicey, right? It's like 6 and 4, and we're entering the final 10, but there's a couple of flips that could happen. So it doesn't look good. Things look very bad, and it looks worse every day. And I think to myself, like, I don't know what the line is for pulling whatever emergency chute you've got, right? And then after that, if you pull an emergency chute, where the hell do you go? Because it's not like, okay, I'll just go to England. I'll just go to Greece. I'll just go to Europe. I'll just go to Australia. I'll just go to Mexico. I'll just go to, like, where would you go? Because I don't think there is anywhere that's not going to go down this pathway. The United States maybe, but it might be just as bad for other reasons, right? And so, and if you get to the United States, is it realistic to think that you would be able to stay there? I don't know, right? And I think no, personally. And you can't realistically build a life if you're not above board. If you are above board, that's fine. I could get a job in the United States. Anybody know anybody hiring? But it's difficult because the job market's difficult, right? So, and then if I get a job, what about the other people who rely on me, right? Is that job enough to cover everything we need? I don't know, right? And so there's too many unknowns. And again, what happens if Trump doesn't get another term because he says he wants another term, or Vance doesn't win, or AOC becomes the president in 2029 or 2030? That's like, am I going to go build a life in the United States and then President AOC comes in and it's worse than Canada because holy cow, right? And then blue states are banned. I don't know. AOC is crazy, but you see the dilemma. You can't easily get out of this, and fighting your way out of it as well. Very difficult, even more difficult because, well, I mean, most people don't even believe that there's a conflict going on. So things are tough, and I don't see a really good way out of it yet. So fingers crossed that things become obvious. You know, like when you're driving down the road and somebody says, you got a turn coming up, and you say, I don't see it. And then in another couple of inches or another couple of minutes, you do see it. Hopefully our off-ramp becomes apparent and we're able to save some semblance of what Canada used to be. Because at this point, I don't recognize this place. That's enough out of me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for your support. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful, wonderful